then, he finds out that she's Lady Whistledown and he's upset about that. And then for a time, he's just upset and I can't figure out why. Like, what exactly are you upset at? I'm coming to realize is my main question for a lot of these little things that I have issues with. Why? Hi YouTube friends, it's Trish here and welcome to my little corner of the internet. I always feel like I go blank right after saying that. Anyway, yes, so I am here finally, and I know that it has been some time since I posted up the episode 8 of season 3 of Bridgerton. Did I say all that right? Yes. Okay. Reaction video, and I chatted for a bit at the end of that one, as I did with all my other reaction videos as well. But I had mentioned in one of those videos that I was thinking about doing a sort of, now that I've seen the whole season and sat on it and sort of processed it, how do I feel about it sort of video. And so that's what this is going to be. I'm sorry that it's taken me some time to get around to doing this, but yeah, I guess let's chat. I mean, so in the meantime, because I also watch a lot of YouTube, I've been watching a lot of other people talk about this, so I don't really know like what else I would be adding to it. Turns out a lot. I have a lot to say. I just kept amping up as I was doing this video, so buckle in, folks. A lot of the people that I watch, I tended to just super agree with or like they mentioned something that I hadn't even considered and thought was really cool, but I don't want that to inform my own video, but I can at least talk about the things that I did agree with. And I don't know, maybe there might be something in my notes that I hadn't seen in one of the videos, because it's not like I wasn't also talking about it with friends and thinking it through, and just like as a whole the season was meh, which sucks because I've rewatched the second season somewhat recently, I think, but also the first season. Jesus Christ. Right, so I've actually somewhat recently-ish watched both the seasons in preparation for watching season 3, and I could never really pick which one I liked more, because it took me a while for season 2 to sort of, for me to get on board with it, but then I found that I really, really liked it. I've talked about it in other videos, so I won't go too much into that here, but anyway, I just feel like the storylines for both season 1 and season 2 were just so, like, it held my attention, and in fact I was like very eager to watch next episodes and continue on. And it's not that I didn't have that here, but my reasoning here was different than when I was watching those two seasons. I feel like those two seasons, the story was so captivating and interesting and you really wanted to see what was going to happen next, and over here I didn't have that same drive, but I was like, it's going to get better, right? It's going to pick up, right? Like, and I can't tell if it's just because maybe I'm not that big into the friends to lovers trope. I'm trying to think of other storylines that maybe have this, and I don't know, I can't really think of any off the top of my head, but just as a general romance girly, I don't see myself not liking it. I think there would be something really sweet in, like, the story of Emma is essentially friends to lovers, right? I think there's something kind of quaint and adorable about the thought of someone who's sort of known you through different stages in your life and has been a solid partner through that in a friend capacity, but then it turned romantic later on and you both start to have feelings for each other in a different sort of way, and then you explore your relationship like that. Like, I think that's really beautiful, actually. So yeah, now I'm sort of I guess rebutting my thought of maybe that's why I didn't care for the season. I don't think that that's the case. I think the story itself just left a lot to be desired for so many of the characters. Like, I already felt this while I was watching it for Benedict and Eloise, which obviously my attention was going to go there because they're my favorite Bridgerton siblings. Um, and so while I'm watching it, I'm just like, I hate that Eloise is always so sad. And there was, with Benedict's storyline, I have nothing against like the outcome of him potentially being bi or fluid or whatever, but I feel like the story was dragged out for so long. And so that's sort of a comment that I'll have about other storylines as well. Like with Will and Alice, I felt like they had so much going on in the first half, and then I think I wrote in my notes, hold on, let me find that. Because it was actually kind of funny, or at least I think it was funny. It was like the Mondriches have a plot for the first half, and then they become NPCs for the second half. Along with Benedict. Like, I just feel like there was so much that was there, and then suddenly it just dissipated and it was gone. Or, like, I guess I should get into it, because I did kind of somewhat go through character, or maybe through duos of characters, but anyway. This video, just to like actually now get into it, I suppose, is the thoughts that I've had since watching season 3 and just sort of mulling it over and going through by character kind of the qualms that I had, which sucks because I love these characters oh so much. So please know that going into this, there's no hate towards the characters. Oh, and can people stop throwing hate at the actors? I keep hearing about this. I not really actually, for someone who like is doing these videos and putting them up on YouTube, I'm actually not an internet person that much. Like, I'm not on X, or I have an account on X/Twitter, but that one's hella loud. Yeah, so I have an account, but I post once and then every other blue moon. Like, it's very rarely. uh and then I'm mostly, I guess, on Instagram, but then again I just sort of scroll for a few minutes and then I'm off it. So my point being, I have not been actually seeing this, but I've been hearing other YouTubers talk about these actors getting a whole bunch of hate. I heard about it for the one actor from Heartstopper got a lot. And then like over here, Colin's actor, Luke, which Luke is it? Because Benedict's actor's name is also Luke. One is Luke Thompson and the other one's Luke Newton. That's all I remember. Which one is which, I can't remember. Sorry, I should actually have that down. But all these actors are incredible, and just across the board in like the industry, actors are playing characters. So let's not throw hate at an actor for doing their job, which is playing the character. And clearly they're doing such a great job that it's inciting so much, you know, like so many feelings, so deep feelings of like whatever towards these characters, which is fine. But remember that it is a character that you don't like and not the actor that you don't like. So please, let's stop with that. That is not cool. So all that to say, going into this, I love all of these actors, still do. I think they're doing great jobs playing their characters. I have issues with the story. Shall we start with Eloise and Benedict? Okay. So I mentioned already about how in this season I just feel like Eloise is perpetually sad and mopey for most of it, and then Benedict is having um this affair with an older lady, and it's all hunky-dory, and then she sort of opens his eyes into a different way of sharing your love. And he's open to it, and that's all great. But like I said earlier, I just feel like it was stretched out really long. Like, we got a lot of scenes of them being physical, which that's fun. Um, but I feel like there's only so much of that you can see. Like, there was not that many conversations. I feel like in the last episode, when they did find, I think it was the last episode, when they did finally start talking and they were laying there, I was like, ah, are we finally gonna hear a conversation between these three? Because I was like, okay, where are we getting at? What's happening? What's going on? And then at the end, like, Lady Tilly mentions that she is developing feelings for him. And while I was watching it, I thought it was very nicely done. And I still stand by that. I like the conversation and seeing Benedict and her really sort of lay it out there on where they're at, how they're feeling, what they would like to happen, realizing that they're not aligned, and like sort of saying goodbye in a very sweet way. I kind of just wish it happened earlier, maybe. Even though she was developing these feelings, I don't feel that the show showed that so much. I think it was really just the one scene when we did finally get the three of them talking to each other, and he's telling Paul about why he goes to parties and why he does enjoy it, which was strange when the first half of the season you have him like trying to run away from everybody in the balls. So that felt very contradictory, actually. And it was, yeah, it was contradictory, so it didn't really make sense. Like, which one is it? Do you have a lot of love to give and therefore you enjoy going to the balls because you enjoy just like giving attention? Or do you want to run screaming for the hills when like someone tries to engage you in conversation at the ball? Because that's what we saw in the first half. And anyway, like, he's talking, and then he sort of starts instigating them into getting physical again, and you see this moment where she is, I guess, looking down at him. And I suppose you could say that she was having a moment where she was seeing him in a different light, possibly. I don't know. I guess that's the thing. I don't feel it enough for it to have hinted that Lady Tilly was developing feelings for Benedict. I almost wish they did have another scene, maybe at a ball or something like that, where Paul isn't there, and I don't know, he like notices that she needs something and goes to get it for her, or they're dancing, and instead of it being sort of a comedic moment where they're doing their own little thing on the dance floor, they actually are dancing, and you notice her smile in a different sort of way, or really enjoy the feeling of his like arms holding her or something like that. And it sort of startles herself, where she's sort of longingly looking at Benedict as opposed to them just being friends with benefits, which is what they had entered this relationship as. So yeah, it came on suddenly, which is weird to say for how long the three of them were sort of together, or at least it felt that way. And maybe it's because there were so many sex scenes. I do quotations because they were making out in a bed, which, like, you know, hint hint, I suppose. So there's that. But to Eloise, I just, the whole like Cressida friendship thing, and I have my qualms about Cressida that I'll probably loop in over here as well. But Eloise had so many scenes with Colin this season, which was so strange because in previous seasons she's had so many of those scenes with Benedict. And so we hardly got like swing therapy sessions or whatever between the two of them, which Benedict's character even points out at the end, where it's like it's been far too long since like we've been here together and just talked. And I like their relationship because both of them sort of feel like, I don't know, a fish out of water, the black sheep in the family, what have you. And I felt that it made sense that those two would have a more closer relationship because they're both kind of different and they understand each other in that. And that's not to say that her and Colin never had scenes together, and they're all siblings and they're all very close to each other. And it kind of makes sense over here with this being Colin and Penelope's season, and her being was best friends with Penelope and is a close sibling of Colin's. Like, it does make sense that they would have a lot of scenes together. I just wish that we also got scenes with her and Benedict for different reasons. And then Kate and Anthony popped in and out, and it was such a joy whenever they were around. And I love that we did get a scene with Kate and her talking, and Kate being like, "You're thinking about Penelope, and like maybe you should tell her about these feelings that you're having, and like you guys can work through it or whatever." And that was so lovely to see. I wanted more of that. I really was looking forward to these two people that are very open with their thoughts and more forward thinking, progressive thinking, like us women can do anything. Like, why are we being held back and all this kind of stuff? Like, in the same way that Eloise and Benedict feel different from the rest of their family, Kate and Eloise have this shared, understanding of women are capable of so much more. And so when she is feeling down after her when Eloise is feeling down after her and Penelope's friendship essentially breaks at the end of the last season, like they have her going to Cressida to become friends, when I feel like it would have been Kate that would have been there for her. They would have gotten closer. Not that they weren't already close, but now, with Kate being married to Anthony and being in the house and all of that, they would have gotten closer, and they would have had, I don't know, these sister moments, where how Daphne had with Anthony in his season of coming at it with some wisdom. Like we see Kate and Anthony talk to Colin later in the season when Colin's having issues. And they're like giving the sort of marital advice or whatever. But in a different way over here, it would just be a sisterly talking about friendship and like all of those kinds of things. I don't know. I wish that there was more of those two together.
Oh, well, I guess technically Kate and Anthony did go on like a 6 month um what's it called? Honeymoon or something like that. Or I don't know how long it was, but it seems like it was rather lengthy. So I suppose there is that, but still, I think we still could have seen a lot more scenes with Eloise and Kate together. So I stand by that. Carry on.
I kind of wish that there were more scenes of the siblings together, period. For a show that is centered around the Bridgertons, like the title of the show is Bridgerton. We actually hardly see them all together. And when we do, they're very quick scenes. And I don't know, I would like to see them lean on each other more. But so, like, the whole Cressida thing, at one point, I actually wondered if Eloise was going to get a similar story plot arc as Benedict's character ended up getting, because there were moments where her and Cressida were talking, and I'm thinking in particular the one ball where Eloise was sort of sitting off to the side, like slouched in a chair, and Cressida comes with her like puffy sleeves. And I think she asked Eloise about like well, what do you think that like women should do instead or whatever? And Eloise sort of perks up and she's like, oh, I didn't think that you would be interested or whatever. And then they start talking. They turn that into a comedic thing later on because the scene cuts from them, which I was actually in my reaction, I think I remember like I was engaged. I was excited to hear this conversation develop, and instead it cut to Colin, who was in his room stewing over what his mom said about um Penn is about to get engaged. Which, like, okay, I get it. This is supposed to be Penn and Colin's season, but like, but then it cuts back to them and it's showing Eloise continuing to talk, and she's very like in it and animated and excited to finally be talking to someone, yet Cressida is sort of sitting there half listening, basically, like she got in over her head, which yeah, it's funny, but I don't know. I hate that for Eloise. I thought they're friends now, you know? And anyway, in that moment, and maybe there might have been another one, I actually wondered if the show is going to be going in that direction. Is Eloise going to develop feelings for Cressida? How strange would that be and insane? That would be like another enemies to lovers sort of situation. But I didn't hate that idea. I like it a lot better than what ended up happening. Like, I wrote this too about Cressida. If Cressida was going to be a bitch, why give her a heart? Because I just feel like they spent the first half of the season giving us a backstory into Cressida and how she's got this terrible home life. And she is pushed to act the way that she does because she's desperate kind of to get out of this situation and appease her parents. Like maybe it started off with wanting to do good by her parents or whatever and make a match, and now it's more so she needs out. I don't know. Anyway, so they build all of this up for us to kind of care about Cressida, which still didn't really hit for me because yeah, everyone's going through that shit. Maybe not to the same level that Cressida is, but it's such a thin path that the ladies are set on when they are born, even that everyone is feeling that pressure. Not everyone turns into an ice cold like just bully. So like I get it, but I don't. I see what they were trying to do, but I don't get it, or I'm not buying it. And especially when I don't quite understand why Eloise and her suddenly were not friends. It seemed like the night that they were playing charades at her house, at Eloise's house, which when when I was watching it, I was like, charades, no, because I think of it as the acting thing. Like you have a word that you find, you have to act it out for your team to figure out what it is. But no, this was like riddle me this. So I don't know why it was called charades. But anyway, so like over there, she gets a Cressida gets upset at Eloise because she's like, I'm being forced to marry this old man, and I'm coming up with the plan on how to get out of the situation. Do you want to hear it? And Eloise is preoccupied because Penn is now engaged to Colin, and Colin has no idea that Penn is Lady Whistledown, and so she's like, what the hell? So I get that Cressida is upset over there, but I don't know, to the level that they suddenly just stop being friends, and like Cressida takes the credit for being Lady Whistledown and then releases that short snippet of a piece, and Eloise is suddenly angry at her, and I don't know, I don't really follow, and I don't really get it. And then suddenly Cressida, like, then God, these planes. So I guess their friendship was already sort of souring a little bit over there, and then Cressida's mom decides to basically write that piece that's like so rude and vindictive towards the Bridgertons, which effectively isolated her daughter. And I got so annoyed when she was saying that, oh, as women, we are not friends. We are like, we have to look out for ourselves and blah, blah, blah. And Cressa's like, Eloise actually was a true friend. And then her mom is like, well, where is she now? Where do you think? Like, after a piece like that, you think Eloise is gonna just stick around and be her friend? When you were insinuating that Violet was sleeping around? Like, huh? Made no sense and frankly just pissed me off. But anyway, back to all of this because I don't know where I was going with all of this. Because I guess I sort of went into talking more about Cressida than the Eloise Cressida connection because it suddenly dissipates. Oh, and then Cressida goes to Eloise asking her to help her write the next column because she's struggling. And over there, Eloise tells her that I can't help you. She reminds her that Lady Whistledown wrote a scandal piece about Eloise. So she can't help her, and frankly, she can't be friends with her anymore. And then suddenly, Cressida is saying the same things that Penn told her during their fight, and it made sense when Penn was saying it. It does not really make that much sense here when she's saying it. I mean, I guess you could say that because they were talking about what women could be doing as opposed to like what they're relegated to be doing, like that conversation that I was just talking about earlier, but she wasn't even really listening over there. So for her to then throw the same line of you're all talk, like you have all these ideas and you have all these desires, but you don't do anything with it, and I did something. And it's just like, you did something, you took credit for someone else's work. I just, okay. But anyway, and then since we're talking about Cressida, I'll just continue with Cressida, but she does her little threat, right? Little. But anyway, she does her threat to Penelope, and then Colin gets involved, makes it worse, and she doubles it, and all of that is just sort of like, okay, whatever. And she has her moment with Colin, which I do sort of am like, oh, that was, I guess, a good scene, because Colin's like, everyone will forgive you, your father will bring you back and like will welcome you once again and all will be forgiven. And it's just like, Colin, no. Not everyone's family is hunky-dory like you guys are. I mean, it's beautiful, the relationship that the Bridgertons have with each other, but not everyone has and is like blessed with that sort of close-knit, loving, accepting family dynamic. So that was kind of nice to see, I'll say. But so she gives her threats, and her aunt has arrived to take her out, and she's like, oh, well, this won't matter anymore later anyway, because she's thinking she's gonna get the money from Penelope. But instead, at the ball, which is where she's supposed to be getting the money at, Penelope has her speech, which I'll get to later. Goodness, I've already been talking for 30 minutes. Why do I do this every time? I really do ramble a lot. There's still so many characters to talk about. Anyway, so like, what I was getting at is Cressida wasn't even there. We saw no reaction of hers except for seemingly the morning after, where she's, being put in a carriage off to Wales with her aunt that she hates. She wasn't at the ball. She didn't have any sort of confrontation over there or look of defeat, because Penelope instead is deciding to take this as a opportunity to go ahead and take the wind from her sails, I guess. Just being like, okay, well, she has nothing to threaten me with if I go ahead and tell everyone who I am. Where'd Lord Debling go? I wrote that too. Like, after he realizes that Penelope is in love with Colin, and so he's like, well, I can't propose to you if your feelings are otherwise engaged. Um, he just dips, and we never see him again in the season. So I still kind of stand by. I feel like Eloise and him would have hit it off because they both just want away from society. Um, and even him and Cressida, since they were having that connection over not feeling part of their families, their respective families. So I don't know. I just, why did he have to disappear? Like, his character was literally just there to shake Colin out of, like, I don't know. um I suppose let's talk about, I touched a little bit on the Mondridges earlier, about just a quick comment about the first half of the season they had these issues, and then suddenly there's no issues in the second half. And I'm saying first half and second half thinking that episode 5 was sort of the halfway mark. Even though episode 4 was, I just feel like so much happened in episode 5 that that felt like the halfway point. But anyway, it was such a big deal for so long that lords cannot have businesses, which felt so random and out of place. But apparently, they can't have their own businesses. And like, they made a point of saying that, oh, more and more lords are closing their accounts and leaving, which is like, it wasn't an issue for them before to have accounts over there. Just because he's now become one of them and has a business, it's such an issue. And Lady Danbury got involved, and she was just like, the queen's attentions are otherwise engaged right now with Francesca and like Lord Samadani and stuff like that, and Lady Whistledown, I suppose, but she also apparently wouldn't approve, and you're lucky that she's not paying much attention, but once she does, like, it's not going to be good. Saying it doesn't really do much for me. Like, I just don't understand why that was such a big deal, and it was such a big deal that Will wasn't for a while, right? He was not going to give up on his club because he worked so hard to start it up and to foster it and make it become this success. I mean, in the beginning of the season, it was packed in there. There were so many people, and it was just strange that they get into the world of the Ton with their son inheriting after Alice's aunt passes away, but I don't know, once they get over there, suddenly Alice is worried about it all being taken away, and so she's encouraging her husband to give up the club. And yes, they make a good point that he's missing out on like their children growing up and learning and becoming a part of the Ton, and he's still holding on to the past, I guess. But like, it's a past that you guys worked so hard to get, and it just seems so easy for her suddenly to let it all go, and then nothing. Like, suddenly they do let it go, they throw a ball, and they become the popular kids. I mean, you're seeing these scenes of everybody wanting to invite them to events, and it wasn't really explained why. And so I was wondering, like, is it just because they're fresh blood, or like, what is it? Why is it that suddenly that became their storyline? Was everyone wants them to go to their parties, and oh god, they're so tired of all of these events. Like, it's just like, okay, I don't understand why or what or how, but fine. And like, it would have been fine had they been struggling to adjust to this life of being lords and ladies, and they have one quick scene with Benedict, because I thought that Benedict was now going to be helping them adjust into it, right? He was always very friendly with Will. He like went to his club in season 2 and was like meeting the artists over there and stuff like that. Oh my god, I forgot to talk about that with Benedict. I am so annoyed that they just dropped the whole art thing. They maybe hint at it 2 times in the season, I think, where he's like, well, I'm directionless now. I have no path of a course to travel through or whatever. For something that was such a huge part of him for 2 seasons, and suddenly it's just dropped like it was so easy. Anyway, they have one scene with Benedict and them at a ball, and they're like, oh, if for someone who's like, he had mentioned that the girl that they saw is not someone that he's courting, and Alice is like, well, I don't think that she thinks that, because yeah, that girl is sort of watching him like a hawk. But it's just, Alice goes away to go get some drink or whatever, and Will is saying that if for someone who is born into the world can't even really go by the rules, or like walk this path how are we expected to. And then Benedict is just like, well, you're married, so it's all done for you. Which does seem to be the case, but I don't know, there's more to it than that. I like, while Anthony was on his honeymoon, Benedict has been taking care of the estate and all that goes into running it. Seemingly, Will should be doing the same thing with his son having taken over this estate, and he's a baron now. Like, aren't there baron duties that obviously his son can't handle? He would be handling in his son's stead until his son comes of age. So, like, that should have been Will's storyline and Benedict's. And maybe Benedict, like, meets a guy through that, and starts to, like, they start off as friends, and then it's like, oh, I actually think there might be feelings here, and then that enters that story. Why are there so many flights? I cannot take full credit for that thought, because I was watching one of Lady Genevieve's videos, which amazing YouTuber over here. If you haven't seen her videos, she's so way better at all of this. But anyway, she was talking about how she also did not care for the Lady Tilly Paul threesome storyline. I won't go into her thoughts over there. You should watch her video and hear them, though. But she did talk about that she thought that it may have been better had he, like, met a guy, been friends with that guy, and then started to develop feelings and sort of contend with it on, like, figure that out on his own through just that meeting or whatever. And so I'm just, like, now thinking about that as I'm talking about Will, and how if he's taking over, not him, his son is taking over this estate, his son is young, he would now be taking care of the estate. And I had thought in the beginning that Benedict was going to help him, because Benedict has been doing it while Anthony was gone. Anthony took him out for a drink as a thank you and been like, oh, it was really nice to come back and see that every T was crossed and every I dotted. Like, showing that Benedict has been pretty well running this estate, well enough that Anthony and Kate are like, peace, we're gonna go off again. You can handle this while I'm gone. So it's like, I think that that would have been a more interesting storyline. We were watching Will and Alice now have to then maybe like give up his club just because they have bigger responsibilities now. And it not just be this weird, like, oh, like lords don't have clubs that they take care of. For what? Like, why? 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 There was no like reasoning as to why. It was just, it's just not done. You guys have estates that you have to take care of. How is that any different? Like, and again, as I had said in another video, it's not like he was a waiter at this club. It was his club. He was the owner. Like, it just, it's so frustrating. So yeah, Will, Benedict, that should have been like this thing. Much the same way Madame Delacroix should have been more involved with Penelope. Season 2, Penelope's running into her issues with staying hidden as Lady Whistledown. And through that, Madame Delacroix happens to basically find out that she is Lady Whistledown through sort of an accidental run-in in the market. So then Penelope starts using Madame Delacroix is sort of like a waylay station sort of situation. I don't know. With giving her the writings to then sew into silk to send to the printer to have them printed. They built all of that up in season 2, even having Pen go to Madame Delacroix when she is struggling to think, what is she gonna do now that the queen thinks that Eloise is Lady Whistledown? I can't come forward. I need to keep my identity hidden, but I need to help Eloise somehow. She comes to Madame Delacroix to talk it out and to see if they could come up with something else. And Madame Delacroix is the one who gives her the idea of, well, you know, a lady would not wear something she knows she looks bad in. So I just feel like we should have seen more scenes with the two of them together other than the 2 scenes that we got with them. And I don't know, she should have been more of a part. I feel like in the first season and the second season they would hint that she's so driven in her path as a designer, and she still is, and like that's her advice that she sort of gives to Penelope when Penelope's saying, oh, I'm gonna give it up, and she's just like, oh, you know what I love so much about being a designer is like the glow and the happiness I see on my clients when they wear my dresses. Like, I would never want to give up that feeling, effectively telling Penelope that we're creators, we're creatives, like we make this stuff, and what we get from it is seeing how it affects other people and how it's beloved by other people and stuff like that, how it changes how a person walks through life. And that's why we do it. And so don't give that up. I mean, in the second season, Penelope had mentioned that her designs were really good. She saw these sketches on the wall, and Madame Delacroix was like, oh yeah, I was thinking about sending it to a design house in Paris or something. Why couldn't there be more of that? Like, I don't know. I think Madame Delacroix could be more than just a gal pal. I just do. Okay. I'm gonna leave Penn and Colin for last because, oh, annoying. Okay, Francesca. So, Francesca and John. So I don't know any of their storylines. I forgot to say this at the beginning. I haven't read any of the books. I'm just a fan of the show. Please no spoilers. Peace and love. And so I read a comment recently that apparently the way the storyline is going in the show is very different from how it happened in the books. As in, it's like a completely different storyline, not just a gender bender situation. Because in my last video, I was like, I'd heard rumblings that book readers are kind of upset because there's a gender swap for Michaela's character. It was Michael in the books, and I was like, well, I mean, I think the storyline should potentially still work, right? It's just a different gender, but the same feelings and emotions should still be there. But apparently, it's like, no, like the story itself is not the same as it was in the books. Again, I don't know the details, but please do not tell me. But thank you to that commenter who wrote that, because it kind of gave me a little better understanding of maybe why people are sort of worried about what's going to end up happening. But so for me, as just a fan of the show watching this, where I get upset, I suppose, is this whole season we've been watching her with John building this connection, and it's very sweet and it's cute and it's adorable and they're precious together. And then like Violet, I'll get to Violet, but like Violet is not really understanding this as a true love connection because they are so quiet in their love. But that, like, Francesca sort of standing by that and being like, listen, that doesn't take away from the fact that we're in love with each other and it's good and all of that. And like they have their wedding day, and then Violet is over there like understanding of it and just being like, you've taught me about this sweet quiet love and how beautiful that can be. I just like never experienced that, so I thought love would be the same for everyone as it was for me. And it was, and she talks about how she like couldn't remember her name when she met Edmund. And so you have all of these I'm going to try to talk over the flight. It's actually not too close, so it'll be fine. You have all these beautiful moments of them, of this story developing, and then suddenly in the last 5 minutes you introduce another character, his cousin, and she's flabbergasted and has her moment. And when I'm watching it, I'm just sort of like, oh like it is cute because she's kind of experiencing the love that her mother was talking about. But then in a way it's sort of putting down what she had been standing by the entire season, which is that her and John share a quieter, sweeter love. But it's not smaller than the more dramatic, passionate loves that everyone else has been having. And I agree with that. I think that's true in real life. And so to see it now contradicted in the last 5 minutes is just sort of, I don't know, it's upsetting. I guess like I'm intrigued and curious to see what happens, but I sort of hate that it seems like it's going to be at the expense of John. I don't know. I grew to really like him and their connection. So I'm just like, wow, how do they move forward with this one where Francesca doesn't end up feeling a little bit like, not a villain, but in the wrong? She is married now to John. So there's that. But since we touched on Violet, I suppose let's go into what I have, the oldies with the goodies. But Violet, Lady Danbury, and Queen Charlotte. Because let me see if I can collect my thoughts. So, Violet, as I mentioned, the whole season she's not really understanding this connection that Francesca is having with John. But clearly there is a connection happening. And then, like, after John sort of tells his story to them at their party at their home, she starts to really see that Francesca is looking at John in a certain way. And when she finally sort of is giving John a chance, she's hearing his story and he's talking about how, like, oh, he can be really clueless at times and look over things, but not Francesca. And that's where it was opening her eyes to how beautiful their quiet love is. And so she seemingly is giving her blessing to Francesca and John. But then when they want to ask for a special license from the queen, she starts to clam up, and then it becomes an issue, and she doesn't want to talk to the queen because she's not 100% sure she does stand by their relationship. Why? Like, you just saw for yourself that they are truly in love. But like they are essentially, for her, what she's seen, they are in love. And so why would you feel that you couldn't stand your ground with the queen? I think it would have made more sense if she were just scared to talk to the queen because, oh my goodness, this is another daughter of mine that hasn't picked the man that the queen has selected for them. um Even though, like, earlier in the season she was telling Francesca, it's okay if you don't like Lord Samadani, because, like, just because it's someone the queen has chosen for you, like, Daphne didn't choose the prince, so, go with your heart. Because Violet's main thing from the beginning is she wants her children to fall in love. She wants them to marry for love. She wants love to be there and present in their relationships. So much so that in the second season she's like trying to talk Anthony out of his engagement with Edwina because she's realizing that he's in love with Kate. Like, the elder generation, as they were talking about in this season, like, they meddle in the younger generations love lives, right? They're always there sort of guiding and directing and being a listening ear and offering some words of wisdom and just being present and there and helping these people find each other. And I feel like in this season, all three of them dropped the ball on that. Like, it just, as I said, like, Violet doesn't see why they are attracted to each other, but then she does see why they're attracted to each other, and she's like, okay, yeah, I'm on board with this. I see it. They love each other. And then they're like, want to get a special license. We were thinking you should talk to the queen. And suddenly she's like, oh, I don't think I can do that. Why not, Violet? Why can't you ask the queen for a special license for them because they're in love? You did it for Simon and Daphne. Like, what? Huh. And then Lady Danbury over here in this season, sorry, the frustrations are just really getting to me now, and I'm kind of amping up at, the 1 hour mark because that's just how I roll, I suppose. But Lady Danbury is, what even happened this season with Lady Danbury other than her brother shows up, she's frustrated and annoyed about that, she does not like her brother, and you're like, ooh, what happened? And then you find out what happened, and it's all about something that happened when he was 10 10 years old. And I get it, like, she lived an awful life. She really did. She truly did. And I understand being frustrated and annoyed, but he was 10 when he apparently stopped you from running away when you had the one chance that you could. And it wasn't really explained how. Like, was she in love with someone else and she was going to run away with them, or was she just running away by herself? In which case, like, I understand why her brother was like, "Oh, it's dangerous out there for a young lady. Let me tell my dad." Like, so seemingly wasn't even a good enough reason for there to be this animosity, but whatever. There was this animosity for much of the season, and she's like, she doesn't like her brother. In fact, when she sees that he's showing interest in Violet, she's trying to throw all the widows of of the town onto him. And then it comes out why she was upset, and then after a time, they finally have a conversation together, her and Marcus is like, "I'm sorry." And then suddenly her and Violet have that conversation. And at first I liked it because she was like, "Oh, this scotch is from Scotland. It's pretty harsh at the beginning, but you learn to like it." And so, trying to be like, it'll be fine. Francesca wants to go off to Scotland. It's kind of a long way away. It takes like 12, whatever. It was like 2 weeks or something. Like, I don't know. Anyway, it takes a long time to get there. I get it. It's far, but she'll be okay. It'll be fine. You'll still see her from time to time. So, like, it started off like that, and I was like, "Oh, this is sweet and cute." And then she was like, "I'm here for you, and my brother is here for you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, like, she's forgiven Marcus very quickly. She got over it, and all it took was a 5-minute conversation where her brother is like, "I was 10 and I thought that you were going to be in danger." And anyway, so now she's over it, and she's like giving her, like, "It's okay, my brother's here." But then also bringing up that, because Violet is like, "I hope that is okay," essentially sort of asking Lady Danbury for her blessing, which Lady Danbury is like, "You guys are adults, like, you don't need my blessing. And it's not like I asked you for your blessing." To which I was like, Violet was probably 10. Like, I don't know, she was young. She wasn't 10, maybe a little older than that, but she was a little kid. What permission was she going to give you to have an affair with her father? And so, anyway, it was just a strange way to suddenly bring that up. And also, like, I thought we already hatched this out. Granted, that was in a totally different show, like a spin-off show, and maybe they did it over here again so that in case people didn't watch Queen Charlotte, then they would know. But if you didn't watch Queen Charlotte, that would be like, "Wait, what?" You would have no idea and be flabbergasted, and that conversation would come out of nowhere and would leave you with so many questions. As it is, I saw Queen Charlotte and I was like, "Why are we talking about this now?" Because they already had essentially this conversation. Like, it wasn't said in so many words, but it was hinted at that Violet was like, "I know that you and my dad had something going on, and I'm over it." So I just, anyway, I kind of wish Lady Danbury was helping Penn out. I hear from the readers that they had a very close relationship in the books, and we didn't see any of that in the show. And I kind of wish we did, because in every season, Lady Danbury has had a hand, as well as Violet, in the main couple's love stories coming to fruition. And so in season 1, she's essentially Simon's godmother, and is there helping and guiding him through his relationship with Daphne, and in season 2 she's there for Kate. And at first he's like, get your head in the game, Kate, remember why you are here, you guys need this connection to work, Edwina and Anthony. But then when that's like not happening, I think she was sort of like, come on, Kate, you got this, just go. I don't know. Anyway, my point is she was more involved in the main couple's storyline, and over here she's not. She is with Francesca, but I don't know, she basically turned Francesca into the diamond when Francesca did not want to be the diamond. And I don't understand why that needed to happen anyway. Because her and Violet were just sort of talking about, I don't know, men that Francesca could go for. And then suddenly she's talking about, whatever happens, my brother will be here and I'll be here, and Penelope's just left off on the sidelines. Like, I kind of wish that she did, because in the very last season, at the very season, in the very last episode, in the very end of it, suddenly she's like, "Oh yeah, I knew that you were Lady Whistledown, but it was all hunky dory. You were fine." I mean, earlier in that episode or the episode before it, they hinted that maybe Lady Danbury knew something, just because she was like, oh, this person is not Lady Whistledown, this new person, because in the last issue that Lady Whistledown wrote, I don't know, I just got the feeling that, she was going through a lot or something. Essentially, that's what she was saying. Like, trying to figure out herself and whatnot. Which kind of got me thinking, like, does Lady Danbury know who it is or something? Or maybe she's just reading into the article that much that she can see that the writer is struggling in some kind of way. But then what? And then in the last episode, she walks up to the Penelope and is like, good going, girl. You did good. And it's just like, huh? I mean, if you knew that Penelope was Lady Whistledown, like, why weren't you more involved with helping her through the season? So anyway, yeah. Violet, Lady Danbury, they're just like, they're acting like themselves, but not in the ways that I would think that they would be acting like themselves. Does that make any sense? That might not make any sense. And the Queen, I don't feel like the oomph was really there the way it has been in previous seasons of her trying to figure out who Lady Whistledown is and be involved in the young people's love lives. Like, she did think of another lord or whatever to bring for Francesca, her new diamond, which I didn't even catch on that Francesca was the next diamond, the new diamond or whatever, until like towards the end of the season, or not the end, where where John and Francesca were asking Violet to talk to the Queen before that, and how John's like, well, I know I wasn't really favored by the Queen, and Violet's like, oh, it's because she just really liked Francesca, but it's okay, like, we can do a quiet wedding in the countryside and like slink off, and she can pick a new diamond next season. And I was like, wait, Francesca was a diamond? Like, that wasn't even mentioned in any sort of way, so that was weird. And I'm trying to think why I didn't like it so much. I feel like Queen Charlotte had a bigger tie-in in season 1 and season 2 with the main couple, similar to how I was saying about Lady Danbury having a tie-in. In season 1, the Queen names Daphne the diamond. Well, I guess Lady Whistledown names Daphne the Diamond, but essentially she is the Queen's Diamond. Um, but, Daphne sort of starts to fail at that, but then her and Simon start their ruse, and so they're starting to gain more attention, and Daphne, still is unable to get the engagement, so she calls Violet over and she's like, "So what's going on over there?" And she knows about this issue, not to the full extent, but with um Nigel. And so give like hints to Violet on how to handle that situation so that there are no obstacles, so that Simon and Daphne can get together. But then like her nephew comes to visit, and so she's like, "Oh, never mind, I think my nephew and Daphne should be together." um and is trying to push for that, but Daphne ends up with Simon, and at first she's a little annoyed and upset, but then, like, she listens to Simon give his beautiful speech, and she's on board. And then there's like the Lady Whistledown stuff, and she's offended and affronted and wants to figure out who Lady Whistledown is. So much so that in the second season, when Edwina comes and Lady Danbury is trying to hint at, "Hey, you should make the newcomer the Diamond." Um, at first, she's just sort of like, but then she thinks about it. She's like, "Actually, this could work in my favor." And she uses Edwina to figure out who Lady Whistledown could be. Like, someone's going to come to her because she doesn't know anyone. And so we'll just like follow her around and see who we find. And it was just much more involved and made sense. In season 3, this doesn't make sense. Like, she's still wondering who Lady Whistledown can be. And then when Francesca picks John instead of Lord Samadani, she's worried that Lady Whistledown is going to say something against her, call her like losing her touch or whatever. But Lady Whistledown doesn't say anything. But still, she like rounds up town people to give her any hint or clue until she's like kind of coming to a conclusion her own, which that was sort of interesting, with her being like, "Well, I noticed that this family is always written in a very favorable light." And um when that piece came out about, I'm forgetting the details now, but it makes sense on why she started to think that it was someone in the Bridgerton family. So that was okay, but all the lead up to that was sort of like whatever. And this Lord Samadani guy was just some random guy that she was like, "I think you would be a good match for Francesca." And then that ended up not working out, but she almost didn't care about it at that point because her whole thing is just trying to figure out who Lady Whistledown is. And I just don't feel like enough was done in trying to figure out who that was. And then Cressida comes out and she's like, "Prove it." So, like, towards the end, it was fine. I guess it's really the first half where I was just like, I don't know, something's missing here. I don't, I don't know. So, yeah. I just feel like the oldies lost their charm. And the oldies should never lose their charm. I wanted to see more of Anthony and Kate. But I'm happy with the little bits that they did show us. It was sweet. I didn't understand quite so much why, like, when we found out what Kate was worried about, it didn't make sense. So I actually wondered for a second, as Anthony did, like, "You are happy, right?" And she was very enthusiastic and like, "Yes, she's very happy." So, like, it wasn't her being pregnant. She was excited to be pregnant. So what was she worried about? Because when we finally hear that she's like, "Oh, I just wanted it to be us two for a little longer," that did not seem like a good enough reason. It didn't make sense. I don't know. I was just like, oh, that's why? Okay. I just, the way, because Simone Ashley, just her acting skills, even when she has no words, her face says so much, and it's a gorgeous face. But like, there's so much emotion behind that I was like, what is wrong? What's wrong, Kate? Like, what is it? Tell me so that we can help you. I was just like, what's the problem? And so, you know, I was there with Anthony when he's like, you are happy, right? So to then find out that the reason why she's been sort of iffy this whole, like, she sat down with Eloise and was saying that the truth is always, you know, the right way to go or whatever, no matter how difficult or something. And she like had this moment where, I don't know, it looked like it was going to be this big reason. It was some sort of thing, and then it ended up just being like, oh, I just wanted to be us for a little longer. It just doesn't make sense for them. I feel like Kate and Anthony would be so excited and would tell everyone, and I don't know. It just, it feels like a problem that was brought up for nothing. I just to extend time, I suppose. I don't know, but I like them being brought in to talk to Colin later, when he's like being mopey, and yeah, him talking to her about wanting to go to India to have the baby so that the baby could also experience that they are a Sharma as well as a Bridgerton, made me teary eyed while I was watching it, and it was really beautiful, though insane. I mean, she's pregnant. They're about to travel to India while she's pregnant. God bless. Um, all right, Penelope and Colin. Let's just do it. I didn't care for either of their storylines. Just like, there's a plane. For all this build up from season 1 to season 2, and you're watching that Penelope has been harboring her feelings for Colin. Colin just sees her as a friend, though they have a moment here or there where you kind of wonder, but he never acknowledges it. He never talks to anyone about it. So seemingly he does not recognize it at all. And then like you have this weird comment which actually like feels off brand for Colin to make at the end of season 2, that she overhears like, huh, are you mad? I would never court Penelope Featherington. I don't know, like, if you guys are close friends, I'm just sort of like, I don't think he would say that. He may say that, oh no, I don't see her in that way. I could see him saying that, but the way he said this, it was just like, I don't see Colin saying that. And it was just so strange because you never saw him with these types of friends before, right? But seemingly he's with them at that end of that season and he's talking in that sort of way. And then in this season, he's hanging around those friends and they're such tools. Like they are. Anyway. And I guess they're giving the impression that most of the men of the ton are like this because Anthony also is caught by Kate at the beginning of season 2 having a sort of bro talk, right? So I guess this is just supposed to indicate that, oh, most men of the ton think in this sort of way. I don't know. You don't see Benedict hanging around people that talk like that. And then you never saw Colin hanging around people who talk like that until that scene. And then in this season. And in this season, it just feels so misplaced. Like he doesn't agree with his friends or how his friends talk, yet he's there friends with them. It just it's just so random and it doesn't make sense. And again, it's just so much of it felt so dragged out. I feel like the sentiment with a lot of YouTubers that review Bridgerton is we could use more episodes. And I do agree with that. I feel like, especially with such a large ensemble cast and they want to give everyone their due diligence, they're not able to because they only have these 8 episodes. So, oh, wouldn't it be nice if they had 14 or 16 episodes? And like K-dramas are 16 episodes these days. It's really nice. And then you can actually like develop these storylines further rather than half baking all of them, because that's what this season showed me. I feel like, but then at the same time I'm just like, okay, but they're also stretching out these storylines for these 8 episodes. Like, I feel like things could have snapped by a little quicker. For Benedict and his whole threesome situation could have snapped through a little quicker. With Colin and like figuring out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown, being upset about it, and then like coming to terms with it, and then sort of standing by her. That kind of stuff could have been a little quicker. This whole Will and Alice being seemingly ostracized from the ton because they have this club, and then they're giving up the club and they're like nothing after that. That's it. And so that happened so quickly. It was like squished at the beginning and then nothing happened for them for the rest of the season. It's so weird how they decided to handle each of their storylines. You build up this feeling that we're supposed to have for Cressida, like, oh, she's dealing with a lot, only for her to still go back to like. So anyway, with Colin, what is it? He's helping Penelope. They get caught. She has to write badly about herself in Lady Whistledown. And so then she's like, we shouldn't be seen with each other. But then her and Lord Debling start to hit it off. And he's starting to be like, oh, what's happening here? What are these feelings? Because she like asks him to kiss her and he does. And suddenly all his feelings are awakened, I guess. I don't know. Then he gets really jealous and he's like, you can't marry him, you don't know who he is, which that's what a lot of ladies end up doing in that time, Colin. And then he just sort of like rush confesses and proposes to her in the same night. Which I guess, I mean, as I was saying while I was watching it, you've been friends for so long and suddenly you realize that you have these feelings and they're reciprocated. I suppose it would sort of move a little fast at that point because you're like, ooh, yay. I don't know, but then he finds out that she's Lady Whistledown and he's upset about that. And then for a time he's just upset and I can't figure out why. Like, what exactly are you upset at? I'm coming to realize is my main question for a lot of these little things that I have issues with. Why? Why, Violet? Why, Francesca? Like, what? Like, why, Lady Danbury? Why? There's so many times where I'm just like, why? I don't get it. Kate and Will and Alice and like, this show did not seem to give that answer in a lot of places. And then when they did give an answer, it just didn't feel like a good enough answer. And you're just like, what am I watching? And so Colin is upset at Penn, and I couldn't figure out why he was upset until he's just sort of at one point saying that I guess he's worried about her. but he never vocalizes that. And like, poor Luke, he's over there acting, his butt off in some scenes where you could see that I guess something was happening behind his eyes and he's struggling with something, but he's not vocalizing it to anybody. It's not even that you have to talk to Penn about it. Talk to your brother about it. Talk to Eloise about it. Talk to someone about it so that the audience can understand what the hell you're upset about. Like, and he's just not really talking to anyone until he goes to confront Cressida about bribing him. He's so upset. He's like, nobody bribes my wife. And then he goes to Cressida, and you think he's about to be like really gung ho and very like angry, upset, and annoyed, and like, berate her or something like that. But no, he takes the gentle approach. And he's just like, I don't know. And suddenly it seems like he's confessing what his issues are. And she makes a point at one point to be like, I don't understand. It seems like you've come here for me to pay you sympathy. Or like, seems like you're jealous, and all of this kind of stuff, which is very true. But why was it coming out with Cressida? And I just, I didn't like it. It was just really dumb. And then it just felt so dragged out for so long. And I don't know. He comes back from talking to Cressida and he's like, I think I made things worse. And so he's like annoyed with himself for have made things worse. And then he's still angry at Penelope and he still won't talk to her, but he's pulling out these letters that he's kept from all, I guess, the years that they've been corresponding with each other, and he's like reading that and he's smiling at himself. But then Francesca's getting married and he still seems upset with Penelope over there, and he's like, don't worry, I'm gonna ask Benedict for the money. And then Penn is like, I don't want you to. And that's where Penn is telling him, look, I just need you to stand by me and love me. That's all. Like, I don't need you to do anything else. To which he was just sort of like, okay, I guess. And so then he just sort of stands by her, but then also not. Like, at that ball, he seemingly still was upset with her. Like, he wasn't standing by her physically or even emotionally, it seemed, over there. So like, what was his issue? And I just Colin was so frustrating this season, truly. It also just felt so out of character for like how he had been in the previous two seasons. He was very like honor driven and supportive and has a savior complex, which I guess he still kind of had over here because he gets upset at her at one point, um and essentially saying like, what's my point then? Like, why am I here? What like, what reasoning would there be for me to stand by your side if you won't let me protect you, I guess, or something like that. I needed more communication between the two of them. They honestly did not talk that much at all. Kate and Anthony had conversations together where they came to an understanding. The conversation they had at that gazebo thingy before they did stuff, that was really nice. Like, you really got to an understanding of them and what like drives their decision makings and their actions and such, because they have always put their family before themselves. They have never like tried to think about what they wanted because they had these big responsibilities, and now it's blowing up in their face. Like, they've failed, both of them, because their families are so upset or falling apart or things are just going wrong, whatever it be. They have sacrificed their lives and their interests for their family, and their family is still not doing well. Like, that was such a powerful scene to have that conversation between the two of them, where there was this understanding that they both had for each other and the positions that they were in. You know, like Simon and Daphne coming together finally and having their conversations, even though arguably I felt like they needed to talk a little bit more as well, but at least Daphne, you know, found the letters that were never opened by his father. She had the conversation with Lady Danbury to understand that Simon had, like, her brother had no idea how bad a life Simon had. Like, he just said that, oh, their home life is not the same as ours. They aren't that close and stuff like that. It goes so much more than that. And this is where she was having her eyes open to just how bad it was and why he is the way he is right now. And so then she could open up the conversation with him and finally say that, listen, I love you and you don't need to be perfect for you to be deserving of that love. And so, like, they came together through having that conversation, him opening up and talking about what he's scared about. Those are such beautiful scenes to see between these love interests that we're supposed to root for. It is so beautiful to see them, like, essentially break down and just lay it all out there, what their fears are, what they're scared about, what they want, what they desire, and like the struggle of trying to figure out how they could get there, how they could, if not relate, at least there be an open understanding between the two. We did not get that with Penelope and Colin. And like, we got the mirror scene, which supposedly was like a real big scene in the book, and I could see how that would be a big scene in the book. And it really wasn't that bad in the show either. I actually thought it was pretty nice. So we like had that mirror scene. Oh my god. I suppose that scene where she was like, I don't want you to ask Benedict for the money. I just want you to stand by my side. I guess the last scene after Penelope's speech to the ton, where she's like, I'll understand if you want to ask for an annulment. But even that wasn't really, I don't know. These were scenes where one was hyping up the other or like telling the other why they love them. They needed a scene before that or in the midst of that, something where they opened up to each other. And I don't feel that we really got that. It touched a little bit because Colin mentioned that, like, he, you know, was working on this manuscript and come to find out that Penelope was Lady Whistledown, you know, who has been a published writer for a time now, a very successful one. You find out that she's been making bank and all of this kind of stuff. So you understand that there would be some jealousy that comes up in that and a sort of wound to the pride. But I don't know, I guess it just, their conversation did not hit the way that Kate and Anthony's did and that Simon and Daphne did at the end of their season. Maybe also because they were literally having that conversation at the edge of a ball. And talk about wallflower, like still at the edge of a ball, and they're having this conversation that it just didn't hit the same way. Like Simon and Daphne's were together. Everyone had left their ball. They were standing in the rain. That's where it started at first, and then it continued on, I don't know, same afternoon, next morning. I can't really tell that. Well, he was still wet, so I guess that afternoon he comes to her room and they continue the conversation over there, and it's just them. Kate and Anthony's happened at the gazebo. Um, you know, again, later on when they see each other, after Kate hears from Edwina that she has fallen for Anthony, And they meet up the next morning after, like, at some place in the woods, and Anthony is saying that he won't propose, or he'll end the engagement or something like that. And she's like, no, don't, like, I could never be the reason for her happiness being taken from her, something like that. So like that was also a very strong conversation that they had with each other, again, solo, alone, away from everyone else. So it just, I feel like that adds a level of, like, these two being in the center of the world and it being about them. With Penn and Colin, they're having their well, the first one, I guess, with "I just need you to stand by me," that happened alone in a study, and that was, it was good, but it was her just telling him, and then I guess her conversation continued later on at the ball, where he then was telling her. I don't know. It just still didn't hit as well. And no hate to these actors, they're doing fabulous jobs. Like, I love the actors, and I love the characters. I just don't like what's happened this season. Because with Penelope's storyline, it was fine, and I guess it makes sense. She's writing. Her and Eloise are still not friends. Eloise is friends with Cressida. That's weird. She's had enough with home life. She wants out. It was sweet to have, this, like, coming close to her mom. And then I guess at the very end of the season with her sisters, it kind of came out of the blue a little bit, but I guess it was needed to happen. Maybe I wish that a little bit of it started in season 2. Also, seemingly, her mom was coming around because he's a Bridgerton. I don't know. At first she was angry, but then she gets told off by Colin, and suddenly she's come around and she's scolding. Um, what are their names? Prudence and Phyllis? Phyllis does not sound right. They all start with the P. Prudence and Philippa. That was her name, Philippa. Um, like, they're continuing on as they have been for many seasons now, and suddenly their mom is like, stop being mean to your sister, which came out of nowhere. And then Prudence is seemingly really hurt that, like, their mom isn't showing her love anymore. So I don't know. That was all fine. It was okay. Penelope finds out about her mom keeping the money from the ton and gets upset about that, but yeah, she has been making money as Lady Whistledown, but hasn't been helping her family. And then when Cressida takes credit for being Lady Whistledown, I do understand why, it's really hard for Penn. And she's just like, I can't let Cressida take credit. Cressida, who's been bullying me this entire time. So yeah, I guess I don't think Penelope's storyline and story arc was that bad, or maybe I'm just so out of it right now I can't think of what issues I did have. I had minor issues here and there. I think I already talked about, like, I do feel like Lady Danbury should have had more of a part with Penelope, especially if you're going to give that scene at the end with Lady Danbury saying essentially that, oh, I've known for some time that it was you. Could have mentioned it. Could have helped. I don't know. Um so, like, that was a little annoying. The the moments with her mother, I guess in this season, just felt sort of sudden, but I'm happy that they were happening. The healing was going on, so that was nice. Yeah, I suppose. I'm a little surprised that she did have a moment of thinking that she would just give up being Lady Whistledown. That does not feel like something she would do. But I guess thanks to that, we got another scene with Madame de Lacroix, so. Two scenes. Okay, I effectively have talked myself out. We're at an hour and 45 ish minutes almost. Boy, can I yap. And I feel like I only really got into it once I hit like the 45-minute mark. Anyway, so we'll see what happens when I actually sit down to edit this. But what did you think about season 3? Clearly I have many issues with it, and I don't think it's one that I would really care to watch multiple times like I do with season 1 and season 2. It doesn't hit the same. And it sucks because I don't think it's any fault of the actors. I just think that what they decided to do with their characters this season is just strange and weird, and I don't know who the lead is next season, if it is Benedict or if we're moving on to Eloise or what. I hope it's done better because I really do love Eloise and Benedict. I just don't like what was done with their characters this season. Because Eloise, it just felt like nothing. Nothing was happening for Eloise. You know, in season 1, she's trying to figure out who Lady Whistledown is. Season 2, it kind of gets reignited and she's wondering who Lady Whistledown is. She meets Theo. She starts opening her eyes to women's rights and where that could go, but then drops that, like how Benedict dropped art. And for a second, it kind of makes sense why she did, because it's not going to change anytime soon for her, and she's sort of coming to terms with that and being like, that's the fairy tale. Like, this sort of stuff is the reality. And so she sort of resigned to have to take part in society as a young lady, but at the same time, not really throwing herself into it. She's just sort of a passerby. And I mean, when she finds out about the engagement between Penn and Colin, she does fire up a little bit. She's like, you better tell him because he has no idea who you are. How can he love you if he doesn't know that? But then, like, she sees how much he cares about Penelope and doesn't want to crush his heart. And so instead, she tries to convince her friend to just drop what she's been working for a long time. Oh, that was something I was going to talk about. The Mean Girls-esque final speech that Penelope gave. So I talked about how I was in. I guess I'm going to continue. What the hell? I guess I talked about how. What am I doing? It was weird that Cressida wasn't there even at the final ball. So what the hell? But also, just that. So I feel like Nicola did such a fantastic job at acting the scene where so at that ball Cressida comes decked in red and brings the little piece hinting that, you know, more is to come from Lady Whistledown, i.e. her. And so Eloise is starting to freak out, and Penelope takes her into another room and is like, listen, I can get rid of this problem with just one issue. Like, she just needs to write something, essentially, like, back me up on this. Like, support me in this. And she cries over here because she's like, she's done so much bad with her pen and she wants to do good. And that's essentially what she starts talking about in that final scene, where she just turns this into such a I should have been a voice for the voiceless. I should have been talking about like what more us women can do. I had this opportunity being a woman and writing and being published and like having this following that I do, and instead of using it for the betterment of my kind, essentially, I've just been spreading gossip and like bringing pain to people. And even though I thought that scene with Eloise in that room was beautiful, and Nicola just deserves all the accolades for that scene and how she delivered those lines, because she truly felt such remorse and she was crushed because what she had written put Eloise in scandal. And even though she had technically done it to help Eloise, it brought so much pain. So, like, I believe her in what she's saying, but it was these quick things that were thrown in at the very end. So it did not feel like it was just so sudden. You know, I feel that we should have seen other scenes sprinkled in earlier in the season, whether she be talking with someone else or, hey, would have been nice if she had been talking with Madame Delacroix and, you know, finding comfort with her in that Eloise is still angry with me, and I don't blame her because I wrote this piece that was so like threw her in such scandal. And frankly, I don't like that this is the sort of stuff I have been writing. I feel like I've been doing more harm than good, and like I'm so blessed with this opportunity and I'm squandering it. Like, I wish we saw conversations like that happening where she was coming to this realization. And so at the end, when she does have that conversation with Eloise, you really truly are there for her. Like, I was there for her because Nicola did such an amazing job acting that part. But I do feel like Penelope's character needed a scene build up to that we didn't see. I truly feel like there should have been a scene, instead of her faltering on whether she would give up being Lady Whistledown or not. Um, Instead, it should have been a scene like that where she was talking through with Madame Delacroix and being like, what am I doing? What have I been doing? What could I be doing better? And so when she has that scene where she's coming out to the ton as Lady Whistledown, in a way it felt so hollow, and like for it to be such a moment, and you could tell that that's what they were trying to do with that and make it be like this, as I said, like that last scene in Mean Girls where she like breaks the crown and she's like giving a little piece to everybody. Like, that's what I felt like this moment was trying to get at. And her being like, one, I hate the way they did her hair. I just, her makeup and her hair, she looked so good so many times in season 3, that for this to be the look that she was having when she was coming into her own and like letting everyone know who she is, that was that was not great. I didn't like that.
Okay, let me go ahead and start off by saying that Nicola is gorgeous. This is not commentary on Nicola. This is commentary on the styling choice for this moment. It just doesn't feel like Pen. She's got this like Vava Voom salsa red lip with the Jessica Rabbit style hair and very dark liner around her eyes. And I just feel like for much of the show, she had sort of pastel looks or like just soft for the most part. Just very, I don't know, soft. This just felt so hard. And I guess because it's like this big moment, that's what they were trying to go for. But I think it just went a little too hard. And so it just, I don't, her hair just feels stiff. Like she feels stiff. And I didn't love it. She's gorgeous, but this look, I just didn't love it for this scene. So, yeah, that was it. Okay, carrying on.
Um, and then on top of that, for it to be a moment like this, and she's like saying it in this kind of way that to me did not have the effect that it was meant to have. Instead, it just, I don't want to say self-righteous, not self-righteous exactly, but it did have this like very grandiose kind of like, oh, like I should have been a voice for the voiceless. So it's like the words that they had her saying, and again, Nicola can act, but like even she could not salvage those lines, I think. It did not, it didn't hit the way I was expecting it. And instead, it left me with so many concerns for the future because I get that now this is sort of a realization that I'm bringing a lot of pain to people, but those are isolated incidents where, you know, it's people that you know, and so you're seeing that. You've still been doing seasons, 2 seasons anyway, of spreading gossip, essentially, and enjoyed doing that. And like she was saying, like gossip is just what we do. It's information. She was turning it into this whole like, or the show was turning it into this whole like gossip is information, and it's how we like move through this world and the society. And you know, as women we could be doing so much more, but we don't, and instead of helping us in that direction, I wasn't. And it's like, again, you were friends with Eloise Bridgerton, who has been the poster child for like that sort of rhetoric, and you had one issue where you talked about, isn't a diamond kind of antiquated, and then that was it. You went right back to writing the gossipy type things that you always did before. And there's nothing wrong in that, you know, but they were turning it into being this like horrible thing that she's been doing for 2 seasons. And it's just, that's not the case. So it was weird. This whole season, there was just so many things that were so weird. And it was just, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with it. And instead, it's like, it's frustrating and it's no and annoying. I feel like there's been character assassinations all across the board. And it's like these characters are my characters, but they're not my characters. They're doing things that don't make any sense. They are like rushing through certain things or taking so long for other things. And you're just like, who are you? Like, the show is Bridgerton, but it's not. It's a hollow Bridgerton. This season did not have the storytelling and the arcs that previous seasons have had before it. And like, there may have been issues in those seasons, but nowhere near the level of issues that I am coming to realize I had with this season. Because I'll be frank, when I sat down to do this video, I did not realize I'd be here for 2 hours discussing this. There's another flight. Um, and that, like, the sun is setting outside and whatnot. Like, I knew that I had things to say, but that I had this much that apparently has been in the back of my mind and is now just coming out willy-nilly. I'm like, I don't even know how long this video is gonna be, but I think that just goes to show that, at least for me, there was so much potential for this season, and I feel like everywhere they dropped the ball. For everyone's storyline, not one of them was satisfactory. Not one of them had something that I wanted to root for. Not one of them, like, had this epic growth where it, like, started at a low point, but then, like, had this arc and this learning period, and then a satisfying ending that made me feel in awe, like other seasons did. It just, the way season 1 ends, the way season 2 ends, though I wish we had seen, like, a wedding. It was nice to see them, like, oh, months later or 6 months later or something like that. But anyway, that's besides the point. The way Queen Charlotte ended, even, like, those were beautiful endings that had me in my feels so much. I mean, Queen Charlotte had me sobbing at the end. And so you have the capability of doing all of that. And then for season 3, where we have been watching Penelope and Colin from the very beginning, and we're excited to see them finally come together, and how are they going to get together, and like, he's going to find out about Lady Whistledown. How is that going to be? How are they going to get through this? I was so excited to watch this season, and now to be on the other side of things, it just, it's not satisfying. And it sucks because Penelope and Colin deserve better. They were never really, like, my ultimate favorite characters, but I did not like them. The Featherington ladies I did not care for, but I liked Colin. I liked Penelope. I just loved other characters. But, like, I did like them, and I was intrigued to fall in love with them this season. I mean, I didn't like Anthony in season 1, grew to love him in season 2. It just, that does happen. It's happened. So for there to be this many characters in a show and not one of them I care about their storyline, just, that's some level of damn. Oh, okay. Now I think I've said everything. I can't imagine that there's more. um I'm so curious. What did you guys think about season 3? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with what I had to say? All 2 hours of what I had to say? Or do you disagree? Were there characters that you were rooting for even in this season? I mean, maybe you can change my mind or give me some insight that maybe I missed or didn't see. But I did not care for the season as a whole or in parts. It just, There was too much that I felt like there just didn't work. But I'm curious on what you thought. So do please write down below. And I think that's about it. Toodles.